Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. President Obama's disapproval numbers hitting an all-time high. A new AP GFK polls got him at 59% disapproval. This is a record high. The previous record high was back in December. Now more people disapprove of President Obama than ever. Only 41% approve, so he's upside down approval ratings by 18 points. According to a Fox News poll, the country is weaker under Obama's leadership. Some 59% say the U.S. is the world's most dominant power, in contrast to the 85% of Americans who held that position in 2002, who was president in 2002. Oh, yeah, that inept cowboy, George W. Bush. 52% of the American people think the U.S. is less powerful than when Obama came into office. So over half of the American people believe that President Obama has positively weakened the United States of America. Now, Rob, I want to grab one clip from his speech over in the Ukraine. We've had it in the queue. See if we can drop down to clip. Let's go clips 12 and 13, the John Karl clip, and then follow that up with the number 13, the President Obama clip. You know, one of the things that we have said is that we predicted this from day one, that when they made open homosexuality legal in the military, it was going to affect military cohesion. It was going to affect military morale. It was going to affect military recruitment. And it was going to affect military retention. In every one of these three R's, readiness, retention, and recruitment, the military was going to be hurt. And everybody said, oh, no, you're exaggerating, you're hyperventilating, nothing like that is going to happen. Well, here's a story from, what website is this on? It's a military website, a naval publication. A Navy F-18 pilot and former Top Gun instructor is publicly warning admirals that retention is beginning to suffer from the military's relentless social conditioning programs. This is exactly what we predicted back in 2010. We told you this was going to happen. We got calls from military families. I'm not going to re-enlist. I'm not going to encourage my sons. We've had sons in the military for the last 4 generations. That's it. This is the end of the line. Not going to send my son into President Obama's military. And so we told you this was going to happen. Now all of our worst fears coming true. Commander Guy Snodgrass, until recently a Pentagon speechwriter for the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Jonathan Greenert, said sailors are becoming fed up with the constant emphasis on social issues, an apparent reference to gays in the military, women in combat, and ending sexual harassment. Quote, sailors continue to cite the over-focus on social issues by senior leadership above and beyond discussions on warfighting, a fact that demoralizes junior and mid-grade officers alike. Commander Snodgrass wrote this month on the U.S. Naval Institute website. That's an independent forum for active and retired sailors and Marines. Now, this guy, this is kind of a gutsy thing for him to do because he is an upwardly mobile fighter. He's due to become the executive officer of an F-18 unit in Japan, so sticking his neck way, way out there. Now, let's go to clip number 12, talking about America becoming weak. Have we got that, Rob? The John Karl clip? Okay, this is John Karl, and what's significant here is not Obama's answer, but it's the question. It's the question asked by John Karl coming from a member of the mainstream media. Let's listen.
Mr. President, thank you. In China, in Syria, in Egypt, and now in Russia, we've seen you make strong statements, issue warnings that have been ignored. Are you concerned that America's influence in the world, your influence in the world, is on the decline? And in the light of recent developments, do you think Mitt Romney had a point when he said that Russia is America's biggest geopolitical foe? If not Russia, who? And Mr. Prime Minister, do you think these sanctions will change Vladimir Putin's calculation, will cause him to back down? And do you see where do you see a Russian red line where if they go any further, if they go into eastern Ukraine, into Moldova, where options beyond sanctions have to be considered? Thank you.
Well, Jonathan, I think if the premise of the question is that whenever the United States objects to an action and other countries don't immediately do exactly what we want, that's been the norm, that would pretty much erase most of 20th century history.
Now, this is President Obama. I mean, he's basically agreeing with Jonathan Karl. Yeah, people are ignoring what I'm saying. They're not paying any attention to what I'm doing. And that's the norm. It's the norm for people to pay no attention to what the United States is doing. That's absolutely not true. Go back to Reagan and the Iranians releasing 440 hostages the day that he took office, the day that he was sworn in. They were all released. They knew that Jimmy Carter was a bumbler. They didn't have to fear him, but they knew that Ronald Reagan meant what he said, and he would be willing to use American force to protect American lives. So it's just ridiculous for President Obama to say it's the norm to have people ignore what we say. You can ask the Taliban in Afghanistan about ignoring what George Bush said about what you were going to hear from us. Ask the Saddam Hussein if what happened when he tried to ignore what President Bush said about coming after him. So President Obama is saying, yeah, it's the norm, but it's the norm for him, not the norm for Republican presidents that have come before him. And Jonathan Karl says, I mean, the question gives it away. Do you think that America's influence in the world, that your influence in the world is on the decline? And do you think that maybe Mitt Romney is a little bit smarter about foreign policy than you are? So basically, President Obama admits, well, yeah, people don't immediately do what we want, but say under my leadership, that is exactly the norm. Now, here's what President Obama, clip 13. This is what he says he's worried about.
The fact that Russia felt compelled to go in militarily and lay bare these violations of international law indicates less influence, not more. And so my response then continues to be what I believe today, which is Russia's actions are a problem. They don't pose the number one national security threat to the United States. I continue to be much more concerned when it comes to our security with the prospect of a nuclear weapon going off in Manhattan, which is part of the reason why the United States, showing its continued international leadership, has organized a forum over the last several years that's been able to help eliminate that threat in a consistent way.
So there's President Obama. Look, I'm not afraid of Russia. I think they're just a regional power, and that's just ridiculously short-sighted. But that's what he's saying. He wants us to try to believe that. And he's saying, look, my main concern is a nuclear bomb going off in Manhattan. Now, if President Obama actually believed that, then you would expect that he would take steps to try to protect Manhattan from a nuclear bomb. But, piece on NewYorkDailyNews.com, this year, President Obama's administration again proposed to slash the budget for the one initiative designed to protect Manhattan from nuclear threats. The NYPD's Securing the Cities program has developed a first-of-its-kind radiological detection ring around Manhattan and the greater New York area. Yet, every year since he took office, the president has proposed significant reductions to the program. Every year, the New York congressional delegation has labored to reverse the cuts on the House and Senate floor. So, all things considered, doesn't sound like a president whose primary concern is a nuclear bomb in Manhattan. Jeff, why don't we grab the AudioByte A7, the Rahm Emanuel clip. Reason I'm playing this is the Democrats are looking for somebody in 2016. Rahm Emanuel, who was a former advisor to President Obama, is one of the guys that's being considered, and these guys have got to find a way to get as much distance between them and President Obama and Obamacare as they can. And here's Rahm Emanuel. I mean, he was hip deep in this, up to his earlobes in crafting Obamacare. if he wants to be a credible candidate in 2016, he's got to create some daylight between him and Obamacare. And so here's how you know that Rahm Emanuel wants to be president, by listening to what he says in this soundbite.
The president, to his credit, I've worked for two presidents and also in Congress worked opposite another president, not opposite, but with another president. He was not scared to have contrary opinions. He constantly, during tough moments in passing that bill, asked me my opinion, unvarnished, 3 different moments and times in kind of the passage, and I gave it to him. To his credit, he didn't want a yes person. He asked me my opinion. I gave him why I thought we should do something slightly different. Once he decided what he did, and the classic towards the end and passing in the House, after my son was done reading his Torah portion of the bar mitzvah, everything was done with the family, I came into the White House to round up votes to get the health care plan passed, because he was strong enough and he had the character to ask for a contrary opinion, and I gave it to him unvarnished.
That's Rahm Emanuel, and this is how he is. I mean, this guy is joined at the hip with President Obama, and here's how he's trying to get away from it, saying if he'd only listened to me, I mean, that's the message here, if he'd only listened to me, things would have been different. But he didn't listen to me, and I got to give him credit for that. He's a strong guy, strong enough to resist this wisdom and this insight and this intelligence that I had to offer him on what Obama could have been if he'd only listened to me. So that's Rahm Emanuel getting as far away from Obama as he possibly can. Well, here's a blessing for the rest of your day. After you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. To him be the glory, dominion forever and ever. See you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
American Family Radio.
AFR Talk.
You're probably already aware of AFA action alerts and are hopefully signed up to get